folks, and welcome back. Joshua here. In today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently than I normally do these videos. What I usually do is I'll do a little bit of homework and maybe sketch out what I'm going to say so this hopefully comes across as fairly polished. But this time, I'm going unscripted. Now, the reason for this is last week I was going to do a video on the audacity of doing these things. It's pretty crazy to sit here and tell people whom you've probably never met and will never meet how to live your life. And it dawned on me that a lot of the folks that will never meet me will have no buy-in to listening to these videos. So that was what I was going to do, and I realized I wasn't quite prepared. So over the course of last week, I started thinking more and more about doubt. And so I want to weave that original idea into this idea about doubt and certainty. So this is going to feel a little bit different. I'm not going to have any headers underneath because I'm not really sure what I'm going to say. There's a very good chance that this will be a very rambling video. So sorry about that in advance if that's what happens. Good news is, if in one of this, in the video, if I say something that's egregiously wrong, maybe I'll actually get a comment for once. So that'd be pretty cool. So I want to talk about what it means to know and what it means to not know. A hell of a topic. Weaving, of course, all this into why you'd want and need to even bother to listen to me. Well, I don't know what I'm doing here. Not really. I set out to do these videos for a couple of reasons. One, there's me counting again, but one, I wanted to give back in a way that my counseling doesn't do. No, with counseling, you have to have money, you have to have time, you have to have a commitment, oftentimes for weeks or months to see some change. And it's doable and it does happen. But a lot of folks don't have those resources. So that's one reason why I wanted to do these videos, is to give something back that would be more accessible to more people. Secondly, I realized it'd be a really great marketing tool, because if someone did find this and then wanted to come see me as for therapy, that's great. Or someone that does see me or does know me could then pass these videos on to folks that might help them. So I thought that was really cool. Regardless, though, there are going to be a lot of folks that watch these that don't know me, and it's much more difficult to connect with someone that you don't know. And I realize that I'm still new at this, and my naivete suggested that just the content of my message would be good enough. Well, I've been doing this for about 2 months now, which is not too terribly long, but 2 months now, 11 subscribers, that's not much traffic. Now, I'm not really doing anything to push these videos. However, I still was hoping and naively hoping that these videos would kind of blow up, and they haven't yet. So, I still don't know why I'm doing this apart from what I said, except for it's fun. That's the other thing I do know, is I don't know that first part, the first part being, does it reach people? Does it help people? Are people in getting anything from these videos? I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that I'm having fun. I hope it comes across on the video. I don't know if it does, but I really like this. I like the thought of figuring out how to say something in a way that makes sense to hopefully a large majority of people. In counseling, and over the years of counseling, I've recognized that I could have let's say, the absolute best bit of knowledge to give to someone. And if I don't say it in a way that they get or understand, then it's a moot point. So let's slide into this knowing, not knowing thing. So your basic philosophy focuses on ontology and epistemology. Now, myself, my normal natural self, runs to the dictionary to make sure I use these words appropriately, but I didn't with this video because, again, I wanted to come into this video uncertain as to what I'd say and uncertain whether I'd be right on stuff. So again, if I'm wrong, please comment. So your basic philosophy works on ontology, which is the study of being, of what is, and then epistemology focuses on knowing what is and figuring out the parameters of what it is we know. I mention that because that's really what we're doing when we're thinking. That's what we're all doing when we're thinking and exploring this world, is working on ontology, which is being, which is what is, and epistemology, which is what we know or think we know or how we know. Now that's a lot to digest just off the face of it. But the simple version is this. We're currently walking around. You're sitting watching this video, people are doing their thing, and there are things that they know and many things that they don't know. And what I want to really stress here is I tend to focus a lot on people's relationship to uncertainty. Now, geez, what is uncertainty? I mean, pretty simple definition is things that we don't know or things that we're not sure whether or not we're correct in knowing. Another way to talk about uncertainty is to talk about belief. A large part of our belief systems are made up of things that we're not certain of. So in therapy, and as a therapist, what I've realized over the course of a decade now is I'm helping people get familiar with uncertainty and get to a place where their relationship to uncertainty is healthier. Because here's the thing, you probably have heard the phrase, nature abhors a vacuum. Well, I'm not sure if that's physically true, but I know for a fact it's psychologically true. Now then, I just said I know for a fact, and here's why. Every single client I've met, and pretty much every person I know in my personal life, has a very difficult, or at least at one time, had a difficult relationship with uncertainty. So one way to look at uncertainty, besides what it is that we don't know or are unsure of knowing, is it's also our relationship to the future. So I've talked a lot about anxiety, and I'll continue to talk a lot about anxiety. But this is where our relationship to uncertainty and anxiety comes in, is when we don't know something, and specifically about the future, oftentimes we freak out. We freak out because that vacuum that I just mentioned, well, that vacuum we actually always have. We always have a bit of unknowing or uncertainty in our lives. And for a lot of us, we haven't tapped into that and connected with it and learned to live with that truth that we can't get rid of. And again, I said truth because as much as I've done this, there's still lots and lots I don't know. Oh, and so that goes back to that part of the video that I was going to do last week. Why should you bother listening to me? Well, here's one thing I'm going to do for you that a lot of other folks don't do. I'll tell you this. I don't know a whole bunch of things. But what I do know is that I'm going to keep exploring and keep giving you my best answer or guess in the moment. I realized, and I'm going to digress again, but I told you this is what was going to happen in this video, is that in New Age or postmodern spirituality, you have a couple of things that seem to be going on. One is the case of they're giving their message of what gives peace, what gives enlightenment, what gives whatever this spiritual text tells us that it can give us, or spiritual wisdom can give us. And they say, do this and then you're free. Well, if it were that easy, there wouldn't be as many helpful gurus out there running around selling their books and videos. If it really did work that simply, then I would have no need to do this video. I'd be watching theirs and I'd be getting to where I wanted to be. So this simplistic version, I really recognized before I even started these videos, I didn't want to be a part of. Now, keep in mind that all my other previous videos I came across as seemingly knowing what I was talking about. Well, I did, but I knew to a certain extent of what I was talking about. Meaning, if I had a dialogue with one of my viewers, they'd most likely come up with some aspect that I forgot, that I didn't clarify, that I just simply don't know. That's always embedded in knowledge. Always. And what's interesting is it's always embedded in both religion and science. This not knowing is part of the human condition. So, going forward after this video, I'm going to script my videos and sound like I know what I'm talking about, but please keep in mind that you're getting my best understanding in the moment. If for some weird reason I was doing this a year from now, or 10 years from now even, I bet you'd find a whole bunch of change in my perspective and my understanding. Because what I continue to do is I continue to butt my understanding up against what I don't know, which is a whole heaping spoonful. My wife would attest to that. And then I balance. This is what I think I know, what I'm fairly certain I know. This is what I don't know. Let's see where the boundary is, and let's see what I can do and what exploration I need to take in order to figure it out. All right. So, uncertainty, anxiety. So this is what we're doing. We're filling that vacuum, that uncertainty, with storytelling. I've mentioned that before. We are doing this on a daily basis without any evidence whatsoever. We are making up whole cloth stories in our head to give us answers. Now, we've got this uncertainty. We don't know, let's say the example is, we don't know how we're going to perform in the job interview. We're not certain about how well we'll do on that first date. We're not certain about whatever. And what we do, rather than plan for it and then stop, which is the healthy approach, we may or may not plan, and then we continue to worry, which means we tell ourselves stories and we what if, we catastrophize, we do all those processes that create anxiety. Now the irony, of course, is in the face of certainty, what is it we have? Well, of course, I've thought about this a little bit. We get safety, we get direction. We oftentimes, because of the direction, we get purpose and passion. It gives us a reason to be. So there's our ontology. Our answer very oftentimes gives us a reason for being and a direction to go. With uncertainty, especially in unhealthy relationships with uncertainty, we kind of wild mouse and spin in a circle and freak out. And so ironically, we're creating anxiety in order to create some certainty so that we can then have safety. That's a pretty backwards approach. Now, I've been talking about uncertainty in that sense. Let me do the opposite version I thought about. Didn't write down, but thought about, which is conviction. Now, conviction can be just as dangerous as extreme and chronic doubt. Where doubt can lead to hopelessness and helplessness and depression, conviction can lead to rigidity. It can also very much lead to an inability to learn and grow. But notice though, it's the same relationship to uncertainty that the other person has. It just looks, again, this polar opposite thing. The uncertain person freaks out, doubts, doesn't like doubting, creates something out of whole cloth that may or may not work. The convicted person might take a little bit of actual knowledge, do the same storytelling, but then refuse to believe that they are wrong. They actually are denying the truth that they're not certain. Now, I thought about this and thought about whether this made sense or not. And so this is the little test I want to give you right now. So notice, well, how do I want to say it? When we are convinced of something, we very often have that tense energy in our body. We have this strong, contracted bodily sensation and this contracted, focused mind. And when we have, let's say, someone arguing against our conviction or attacking our conviction, then we respond with aggression or we respond with fear. But notice though, there is that force and there is that kind of push that kind of keeps us in that tense place. Well, when I was thinking about this a few days ago, I realized I personally don't have that sense, that feeling of conviction when I actually do know something. So, I know I'm sitting here. I know I'm doing this rambling video. I know the air's on. I know my mouth is dry and I need some water. Past that, there aren't many things I can know that don't start immediately getting into abstraction. But here's the thing, those things that I mentioned that I know, I have no doubt about knowing. I've done enough meditation and spiritual practices to sit and be with sensation without thinking about it. But notice that sphere of knowing is really small. With conviction, it tries to go as far out as possible. Metaphysics, which is the study of the origin of things, can cause us to be very convicted in our beliefs that we come from this, the religion says we come from this, or this spiritual text says we come from this, or science says we come from this. And that conviction, that strength of knowing, comes from not knowing, comes from really not being certain. And what we're experiencing, where we don't realize we're experiencing, is that fear of not knowing. But if you can look out the window, whichever direction that is, or look down at your feet and see whether you've got shoes on, you don't have that tense feeling in your body when you look down and go, yep, I've got shoes on. or yep, it's raining outside, or it's sunny outside. Notice simple truth, what philosophy I think calls truth in kind. No, that's a wrong phrase, but I'm not going to edit that because I'm uncertain about that. But they call it something that means just those basic facts we don't have conviction of. We don't need conviction because we just know it to be true. But with conviction, we have to put that force of our will and the force of our imagination into place in order to make that truth true. Wow. So, in both of those areas, that uncertain place where we're constantly and chronically feeling helpless and anxious, and that place in which we are rigid and quite potentially aggressive in relation to upholding our beliefs, both of these places do not honor the truth that we just don't know. And we just don't know a shit ton of stuff. So, I do have a solution. Learn to work on and get intimately acquainted with what it is that you do know. For example, I'm not going to edit this out. I really need a sip of water. It worked. I knew I felt some sensation in my mouth that I called dry mouth. And I knew from experience that drinking a sip of water would fix it. And it fixed it. It's really that simple, folks. Start working on what you can know over and over again to be true. And it'll come down to knowing what it is that you feel and knowing what it is that you think. Whether it's right or wrong, whether it's truthful or not, knowing that you in fact think it. And I still think these videos are worthwhile. Whether they're worthwhile for you, I don't know, but they're worthwhile for me. So I really appreciate you sitting and listening to this rambling. I hope you got something from it. I know I did. You have a good day.